A familiar melody drifted softly through the bright hospital hallway, stopping a grieving son in his tracks. The paper cup of coffee slipped from his hand and crashed onto the polished floor, but he didn't even notice. The nurse inside his mother's room was humming a lullaby that only 3 people had ever known. His late father had written the melody, his younger brother had added the words years later, and after his brother died in a tragic accident, no recording of the song had ever been released. It had disappeared with him, or so everyone believed. Yet there it was, filling the hospital room with warmth, hope, and memories that refused to stay buried. In that breathtaking moment, one forgotten song began unraveling a family story that would heal wounds no doctor ever could. If you believe kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances still have the power to change lives, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel. Every bit of support helps our community continue sharing stories that remind us love never truly disappears. The spring sun streamed through the tall windows of St. Margaret's Medical Center, painting warm patches of light across the quiet corridors. Nurses moved gently between rooms while visitors carried flowers, balloons, and hopeful smiles. Among them walked Garrett Holloway, a 43-year-old architect whose life had become defined by responsibility instead of happiness. His mother, Evelyn, had recently suffered a serious stroke that left her unable to speak clearly and struggling to remember even the simplest moments. Every afternoon Garrett visited her after work, determined never to leave her alone, even though each visit reminded him of everything his family had already lost. Years earlier, tragedy had shattered the Holloway family. Garrett's younger brother, Miles, possessed an extraordinary gift for music. While Garrett built bridges and buildings, Miles filled ordinary days with songs that made strangers smile. Before his 20th birthday, Miles wrote a gentle lullaby for their mother after she underwent heart surgery. Their father created the melody on an old acoustic guitar, and together they spent weeks perfecting every lyric. The song became something deeply personal, sung only during family gatherings and never shared beyond the walls of their small home. Only months later, a devastating highway accident claimed Miles' life. The family packed away his guitar, notebooks, and unfinished music because the memories became too painful to face. Eventually, the lullaby disappeared from everyday life, surviving only inside broken hearts. That afternoon, as Garrett approached his mother's room, he heard the impossible. A nurse softly sang every verse with perfect accuracy. Every pause. Every melody. Every word. Garrett stood frozen. When the song ended, he quietly stepped inside. The nurse, Lenora Hayes, looked up with a warm smile, unaware that tears had already filled Garrett's eyes. He gently asked where she had learned such an unusual lullaby. Lenora seemed surprised by the question. She explained that her grandmother had sung the song throughout her childhood whenever she was frightened or sick. It had become the song she now shared with elderly patients because it always seemed to calm anxious hearts. Garrett couldn't understand. His brother had never published it. There were no recordings. No sheet music. No performances. How could someone else's grandmother possibly know it? Curiosity slowly turned into determination. Over the following weeks, Garrett and Lenora searched for answers during sunny afternoons after visiting hours. They discovered that Lenora's grandmother, Agnes, had spent decades volunteering at community centers and children's hospitals, teaching music to anyone willing to listen. When Garrett finally met Agnes, now an energetic 86-year-old with sparkling blue eyes, she immediately recognized the Holloway family name. Her smile faded into quiet emotion. Many years earlier, while volunteering at a local youth music festival, Agnes met a shy teenage musician named Miles Holloway. The event had been nearly cancelled after funding unexpectedly disappeared. Miles quietly organized fellow students, borrowed instruments, and performed original songs to raise enough donations to save the program. After the concert, he noticed Agnes humming a melody while organizing chairs. It reminded him of something his father often played at home. Together they spent the afternoon finishing what would eventually become the family lullaby. Miles insisted Agnes keep a handwritten copy because, in his words, music only truly lived when it was shared. Agnes treasured that gift for the rest of her life. Garrett sat speechless. He had always believed the song belonged only to his family. Instead, his brother had quietly shared hope with someone who carried it forward for decades. The greatest surprise was still waiting. Agnes opened an old wooden keepsake box and carefully removed a worn notebook. Inside were dozens of handwritten songs. Letters. Sketches. Encouraging messages. On the final page rested a sealed envelope addressed simply, "For my family, if life ever becomes too heavy." Garrett's hands trembled as he opened it. Miles had written the letter only weeks before the accident. He explained that music wasn't meant to preserve sadness. It existed to remind people they were never alone. He hoped his family would someday sing again, not because grief had disappeared, but because love remained stronger than loss. Reading those words changed Garrett forever. For years he believed remembering his brother meant protecting every painful memory. Miles had wanted exactly the opposite. He wanted joy to survive. The following afternoon, Garrett brought his father's old guitar to the hospital. Its strings had gathered dust for years. With Agnes gently guiding him and Lenora quietly singing beside him, Garrett slowly played the lullaby outside his mother's window. At first Evelyn simply listened. Then, almost unbelievably, her fingers began tapping softly against the blanket. A few moments later, tears slipped gently down her cheeks. Though speech remained difficult, she whispered one single word. "Miles." Doctors later explained that familiar music often reaches parts of memory untouched by illness. But Garrett believed something even deeper had happened. Love had found its way home. Inspired by the experience, Garrett donated his brother's music collection to the hospital's therapy department. Lenora organized weekly daytime music gatherings where volunteers played songs for patients recovering from illness, loneliness, and grief. Agnes happily became the oldest volunteer, teaching children and families that music wasn't about perfect voices. It was about honest hearts. Months passed. Evelyn's recovery exceeded every expectation. Although some memories remained distant, she never forgot the lullaby again. Whenever Garrett visited, they quietly sang together beneath warm afternoon sunlight streaming through the hospital gardens. Other families often stopped to listen. Many smiled. Some cried. Everyone left feeling lighter. The program grew rapidly. Musicians donated instruments. Students volunteered. Former patients returned simply to encourage others. The hospital eventually named the project Miles Melody, honoring the young songwriter whose quiet kindness continued healing strangers long after he was gone. Garrett often reflected on the day he dropped a cup of coffee because of one familiar song. He thought he had lost his brother forever. Instead, he discovered that genuine love never disappears. It simply finds new voices willing to carry it forward. Before we reach the end of this story, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave a meaningful comment and tell us, is there a song that reminds you of someone you love? Your story may bring comfort to someone reading the comments today. One beautiful spring afternoon, Garrett sat beside his mother in the hospital garden while Lenora and Agnes softly sang the lullaby nearby. Butterflies drifted through blooming flowers as children laughed in the distance. Evelyn reached for her son's hand, smiled with peaceful eyes, and quietly joined the final chorus. In that gentle moment, Garrett understood that although time had taken many precious things from his family, it could never steal the love they continued to share. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Together, our community can remind the world that the people we love are never truly gone as long as their kindness continues through us. Sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't money, success, or fame. Sometimes it's a simple song, carried from one heart to another, quietly proving that love doesn't end when a voice falls silent. It lives on every time someone chooses to sing.